Number 10, being named traitor. As awful as this one is, it ranks a little lower on our list because, well, Wanda kind of deserved this one. After the events of House of M, Wanda was seen as one of the biggest mutant traitors around, still being believed at this point to be a mutant. Oddly enough, Scarlet Witch was one of the few prominent mutants in comics who has never been part of the X-Men team, and was really only an Avenger. If you're wondering why that is, a big part of it in the later years has to do with mutants hating her due to the fact that she basically wiped them from existence with her wish of no more mutants, which we now refer to as decimation. Well, that and she was initially too busy serving on her father's villainous team of mutants, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Still, although she did earn the title traitor, much of what has happened as a result of House of M happened because of basically how harshly people were treating Wanda. So, although she earned the title traitor, it still feels a little harsh to say that she entirely deserved it. I've always thought of Wanda as more of a misguided villain when she plays that role, as opposed to a true and sincere villain in the comics. Number 9. Cast as a villain. To expand on our previous point a bit more, a few of the worst things that have happened to Scarlet Witch usually involve her being cast in some kind of villainous role, despite the fact that she is truly a hero when it all comes down to it. Scarlet Witch only ever wants to do what's best, and usually it's some kind of outward manipulation or force that turns her momentarily evil, or causes her to break down and commit some kind of heinous action. It does make for some pretty interesting stories, but it's pretty awful the number of times and how severely Scarlet Witch has been used in this way by others, and when it comes to storytelling. Number 8, betrayed by her fiancé. Remember when Wanda was about to marry Dr. Doom, and then it was implied that he really only wanted to be with her because he wanted to take her power from her? Granted, it seemed like he also wanted to do so to help her and help the world, but of course, it's still Doom, so you can bet that ego and selfishness were a big part of the reasoning behind this plot as well. Scarlet Witch no longer remembered who she was when her reincarnated son and member of the Young Avengers, Wiccan, came to find her. All she knew was that she loved Victor Von Doom and was ready to marry him, despite the fact that he had kind of manipulated her. Her love was real, but the backstory that she believed she belonged to wasn't. Wanda ended up spurned and mistreated by Doom even after the truth came out, and she still tried to help him. And before we move on to this next point, just a quick reminder to give this video a thumbs up if you are enjoying it. It really does help us out, I promise. Number 7, being named pretender. What could be worse than being referred to as a traitor? Well, how about when Scarlet Witch was referred to as an imposter? This was the new label she was given after it was revealed that she was not actually a mutant, but had been led to believe that she was one for most of her life, due to the High Evolutionary disguising her and her twin brother as both mutants after experimenting on them, and apparently giving them powers himself. During the Dawn of X relaunch in an issue of X-Men, we actually see stories being told of Scarlet Witch where young mutants are taught to refer to her as a pretender, someone who posed as a mutant but was not one and could not be trusted. Seems a little unfair considering that Wanda herself did not know her true origin until much later in life. She wasn't lying, she had been manipulated into believing she was truly a mutant and Magneto's daughter. Number 6, death of her family. Even in the MCU, Wanda has a tragic origin story. In the cinematic universe, she and her brother Pietro were orphaned at a young age after they managed to survive an attack that collapsed their apartment. Their parents were killed in the explosion that decimated their home, but they survived after a second missile landed but did not explode. However, this experience would go on to haunt them for the rest of their days, with the name on the missile being burned into their memories for years to come. And that name, of course, was Stark, which is why when we first meet the Maximoff twins in Age of Ultron, they are enemies and not allies of the Avengers. Number 5, having Magneto for a father. At least for the time she did. While in the comics, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are no longer considered the children of Magneto, they still had him as a father for many years, and across many alternate Earths as well. While Magneto might be good with magnetizing, he is not very good at parenting. Magneto is usually a pretty strict father who has demanded much from his children over the years. I think Wanda, in terms of having a caring parent, was actually better off with her sentient cow mom that the High Evolutionary created. Number 4, spell backfired. Even when Wanda tries to do good, she can't catch a break. In the X-Men Empire series tie-in, Scarlet Witch seeks to right her wrongs by bringing back all those mutants lost in the massacre at Genosha. She is trying to atone for her past and all the harm that she has brought to mutant kind. But poor Wanda can't seem to catch a break. Her ritual to revive the dead backfires, and instead, simply turns those that she's trying to bring back into zombie mutants, instead of bringing them, fully back to life. To make matters worse, we later find out that Doctor Strange warned her against trying to make amends for her sins this way, telling her she couldn't do what had already been done. This made Wanda think that she simply needed to shift her focus instead of realizing that she needed to actually forge new paths as opposed to undoing old tragedies. Number 3, Vision's death. Going back to the MCU for a moment, one of the worst things that happened to Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch was the death of Ultron in Infinity War. Wanda had to kill her synthezoid lover herself after Thanos showed up to attack Wakanda during an attempted procedure to safely remove the Mind Stone from Vision, attempted by Black Panther's brilliant sister, the Princess Shuri. As the procedure was cut short and everyone was pulled into the fray, Thanos was on his way to claim that stone when Viz asked Wanda to destroy it, and by extension, destroy him. She initially refused, but reluctantly agreed when Viz pressed her and insisted that she wouldn't and couldn't hurt him with her powers, and that all he felt when she used them on him was her. No pain, just her. Aw, so cute. Through tears, Scarlet Witch used her powers to destroy the stone, only to watch Thanos show up and use the Time Stone to rewind time, bring Vision back to life, so that he could destroy him by ripping the Mind Stone out of his head very painfully. Yikes. Number 2, possessed by Chthon. This is one of those times that Wanda was made a villain truly without any of her own intent steering her there. Wanda was actually marked by Chthon at birth to act as the Elder God's vessel, should he find a way to return. Chthon would actually succeed in possessing Wanda and using her to return on more than one occasion, though the first time around was probably the worst, when Mordred summoned Chthon via a ritual, allowing the god to basically take hold of Wanda and leaving the Avengers powerless against his will. Fortunately, the disaster that would be Chthon's return was averted before the ritual could be fully completed. Thank goodness for dolls with parts of Wanda's soul in them. That's what happened. Number 1, losing her children. If you were to ask Wanda what one of the worst things that ever happened to her was, I'm sure she would likely answer the loss of her children. Although she would get her 2 twin boys, Billy and Tommy, back when their souls were basically reborn into our world, reincarnating them, she would never really get back the family that she had initially willed into existence. Using her power and from her desire, Wanda made it possible for her and Vision to have children together, and Wanda gave birth to 2 twin boys. However, when others learned that they weren't real and that their existence was kind of making reality unstable, they forced Scarlet Witch to confront the truth, temporarily destroying or displacing her children. Since they weren't really fully destroyed, because they kind of did come back, but just in a really weird comic book way.
Number 10, Uncle Ben. I figured we'd kick this list off with a fresh, tragic reminder of how Spider-Man came to be in the first place. I'm really glad the MCU didn't make us sit through this scene again. In Spider-Man's first comic book appearance, Amazing Fantasy issue 15, Peter's life changes a lot in those 35 pages. He gets bitten by a radioactive spider, giving him life-changing, incredible abilities. He makes some cash, taking down some wrestlers. He literally gets scouted by a TV producer after just 1 gig. He learns how to shoot webs. He makes a sweet outfit, makes a sweet appearance on a sweet TV show. This guy's literally offered movie roles, interviews, tons of money, and Peter at this point is now just cocky as hell. He's like, hey, I call my agent, boys, I'm busy. And then a thief runs by and he doesn't do a single thing about it because he's through being pushed around. Okay, great. Well, you know the drill. That same thief was the guy who ended up taking Uncle Ben's life. You played yourself, Pete. Number 9, armed and dangerous. In The Amazing Spider-Man issue 100, we find Peter on the streets, webbing up some bad guys, just a usual Thursday night. Now at this point, he's getting tired of New Yorkers looking at him like he's the criminal. He's kind of done being with Spider-Man, so he wants to hang up the spandex and settle down with Gwen Stacy. Now in order for this to happen, Peter needs to get rid of Spider-Man completely. And so he begins working on a serum that will strip him of his powers. He doesn't even test it out either. He just mixes it up and then gulp right down the hatch. Okay, he's brave. Whatever happens, I did it for you, Gwen. I wonder if that includes growing 4 extra arms. Yeah, those back massages just got way better in the Parker household. It's a funny couple of issues. I mean, some panels with Peter having extra naked arms in the frame, it does look a little bit odd. Only after making a new serum with Morbius's blood did Peter go back to normal. Number 8, One More Day. This four-parter began back in 2007 in Amazing Spider-Man issue 544, and instead of Peter dealing with thugs or giant lizards, he's now dealing with the devil, Mephisto. Now, we thought he was the one pulling the strings in WandaVision, and some still believe that he's pretending to be Doctor Strange in the No Way Home trailer, some being me, perhaps, I'll never tell. And it's because of this comic that makes us think this stuff. This takes place after Civil War, right after Spider-Man reveals his identity to the public, so now villains are going after him. So when a bullet strikes Aunt May instead of Peter, he feels guilty beyond imagination. So this looks like a job for the devil. Mephisto appears in the form of a young girl and lures Spider-Man away to offer him a deal. Mephisto tells Peter that he can save Aunt May, but the payment also has to be pretty high caliber. He doesn't want Peter's soul or anything like that. Instead, he wants his marriage. So they agree as long as Peter's secret identity becomes a secret again. So right before Mephisto alters reality, he tells the couple that the young girl that he appeared as was actually their future daughter, adding insult to injury. Peter wakes up the next day alone with Aunt May alive, score, and the world doesn't know who Spider-Man is. I think this is a win, I think it's a loss, I'm not sure what to call this, but either way, my heart hurts. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to give us a thumbs up, you know the drill. If you're loving this content, or if you want a part 2, hit that thumbs up, comment down below, give us all the love, and then we'll give it all back. You guys are amazing. Now back to this list. Number 7, Doc Swap. The Dying Wish storyline begins in the Amazing Spider-Man issue 698. Peter gets a priority call from the Avengers, and when he meets them at the raft, Cap and the team are waiting. He tells Peter an old enemy of his is not looking too shabby and he probably won't make it. Peter knows off the bat already that it's Doc Ock. He just knows it somehow. Incredible. So he asks everybody for a moment alone, just them two. So everybody leaves, and that's when Doc Ock starts saying some really weird stuff. He's like, Peter Parker, but I'm Peter Parker. And then Spider-Man responds with even more confusing dialogue. He's like, nope, not anymore. From now on, I'm Spider-Man. And readers are like, what's going on right now? Did I miss a page? What's happening? This is by far one of the worst days for Peter because now he's trapped in Doc's old decaying body, waiting as the hours go by to literally die, while Doc Ock spends a night or two in Peter's advanced, healthier body. Number 6, Spider-Man, Look Who's Home. Beginning with Amazing Spider-Man 365, Peter discovers that his parents, who have been dead for quite some time, are back. Nice. And he believes it for a hot minute. And by hot minute, I mean this goes on for like 20 issues. It's wild. Aunt May gets a private investigator because she feels like something is just not quite right about this. Peter, on the other hand, feels so comfortable that he decides to tell his parents, you know, who have been in a Russian camp for 20 years, sure, that he is in fact Spider-Man. This guy's spilling huge secrets already. Okay, this is odd. And then in issue 388, we learn that they're actually robots. Nice one, Chameleon. You fooled us again. He's so good with his robots. Number 5, Spider or Man. So Peter has grown extra arms before, but I don't think anything was worse than his transformation in the Spectacular Spider-Man Disassembled storyline. Adriana Soria, aka the Spider Queen, saw Spider-Man as a potential mate, of course, so she forced a kiss upon Parker, and after some time passed, he began turning into a literal spider. So gross. Starting with growing an extra set of eyes, which is, it's kind of funny. Peter can feel himself change as well during this, which is pretty, dare I say, humorous at times, because this dude is now craving fly soup, and he's growing bristle hair in places you don't want to grow bristle hair. The best part is that MJ still makes this guy go to a wedding despite his transformations. He doesn't stick around too long, obviously, because he starts to panic and change even more, so now he's just swinging around the city, not even sure what he's doing. He can't think or breathe, but he knows that the Queen is calling him. His body starts to then change even more until eventually he's, yeah, a literal human spider. MJ's like, hey, you're fine, it's an open bar. What could go wrong? Let's go dance. Number 4, an eye for an eye. In Spider-Man The Other, Evolve or Die, Part 6 features a specific injury to Parker that lives in my head rent-free. Part 6, The Reckoning, kicks off with Morlun and Spider-Man going at it. They fight on the roof of the Bugle and then eventually they crash inside the actual office. It's pretty exciting. Peter tries to take the fight elsewhere as there's too many innocent people around, like say, I don't know, Peter's boss, for example. Peter is trying everything and Morlun isn't even breaking a sweat. Morlun then yanks out Peter's left eye right out of the socket, and then to make us feel even more sick, he eats it like a cherry tomato. Yum. Number 3, Kraven's Last Hunt. Released back in 1987, Kraven's Last Hunt is one of the best Spider-Man stories to this day. The 6-parter begins with Kraven shooting Spider-Man with a tranquilizer and then burying him alive. Now, if that already didn't sound horrible enough, Kraven suited up as the webhead and became a better version of Spider-Man. Yeah, his version would save the day by brutally attacking criminals with the help of Vermin as a creepy sidekick. 2 weeks go by before Peter wakes up underground. He then chases down Kraven, but after Vermin almost takes Peter out, Kraven reveals that his hunting days are since done. While Peter chases down Vermin, Kraven literally retires. This guy goes home, he leaves a confession tape that he buried Spider-Man and took the suit, all that jazz, and then Kraven takes his own life. It's bizarre, but once you start this story, it's quite literally impossible to put down. Number 2, Gwen Stacy. This one we saw on screen in 2014, and honestly, I don't care how you felt about the Andrew Garfield movies, this scene slapped. It was wild. My throat was so tight, like the last time I cried in a movie theater was probably Bridge to Terabithia and then The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm being honest. I'm opening up to you guys. The Amazing Spider-Man issue 121 and 122 are titled Turning Point and The Goblin's Last Stand. These issues shocked readers. At this point in the comics, Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, had forgotten who Spider-Man really was due to amnesia. Meanwhile, his son Harry was not in great shape as well. He was undergoing detoxification. He was having some substance abuse issues, so Norman was now stressing hard. Financial problems, family problems. He eventually had a mental breakdown, and all of a sudden he remembered his dark goblin side. And also he remembered who Spider-Man really was. His first target was Gwen Stacy. You gotta attack the heart, right? Peter meets them on top of the Brooklyn Bridge. He throws his hardest hits, but when Gwen is thrown over the side of the bridge, Peter can't catch her at the right angle, and in turn, her neck snaps because of the falling momentum. It's shocked readers and it's shocked viewers. Like I said, a lot of tightness in the throat. Number 1, Peter's death. Moving on over to the Ultimate Comics, the death of Spider-Man is obviously one of the bigger ones on this list. So when Peter gets a call from MJ saying that Norman has escaped prison, he knows his family is at risk. And this was also happening while the new Ultimates and the Ultimate Avengers were going at it. So while Peter was trying to handle his own problems, he saw that the Punisher was taking aim at Captain America. So he jumped in the way, being a hero, and literally took a bullet for him. As if that wasn't already a rough night, Osborn and the crew are now gearing up to take the battle to Peter's front steps. Peter barely holds on during this fight. He's asking bystanders to call 911. He's not feeling great at all. And come issue 160, the Goblin lays one final blow, and that's the last we see of Ultimate Peter Parker. Kicking off the list at number 10, left arm issues. Since Iron Man 1, Tony's left arm hasn't gotten a break. When Tony makes his first flight escaping the 10 rings, a tank shoots him out of the sky, hitting his left arm. In Iron Man 2, he gets electrocuted by whiplash and his tech shows that his left arm is in the red. It's not looking good. Iron Man 3, Tony uses snow to soothe his arm after crash landing, so it must be still hurting. In Civil War, Tony literally says to Nat, "My left arm is numb, is that normal?" Cut to an hour later, Tony's arm is even in more pain and now in a sling after Wanda dropped a car on it. Even in Spider-Man Homecoming, he's supporting his arm whilst giving Peter a lecture on being a superhero. Makes sense why he snapped with his right hand. Left one's probably done. He probably has no nerves left. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, this list is rather dark, so all that love and thumbs up and good vibes, sure to help us out as well. Also, those thumbs up literally help us in our studio, so thanks for your support. Let's get right back to the list. Number 9, killed by Captain America. Tony and his tech are pretty close, but in Age of X story, we see the two get a little too close for comfort. After a virus began taking its toll on Tony, he started to literally merge into his armor. That's like something from Black Mirror. That sounds horrible. He decided that a name change was also in order, so he started going by Steel Corpse, which, gotta say, looking at him is much more fitting. He, alongside other much livelier Avengers, headed out to take down some mutants, but upon arrival in superhero fashion, they changed their mind and opted to help everybody else instead. We love a change of heart, nice. Only Tony's advanced suit wasn't exactly on board, so now we have a situation. Tony implored Cap to save them, and at that moment, there was really only one way Cap could do it. R.I.P. Tony. Number 8, punched by Captain Marvel. Avengers Endgame showed Tony being saved by Captain Marvel when he was stuck in deep space. But in Civil War 2, they aren't exactly pals. When the inhuman Ulysses Kane starts to divide the superhero community, they get off on the wrong foot. Ulysses has this ability where he can predict possible futures, and in one of those visions he saw catastrophe. Captain Marvel wanted to act on this. We can literally see the future. What a way to have the upper hand, right? But Tony, he wasn't on board. He was concerned about the fact that nobody really knew exactly how Kane's powers were working. That was one thing, but but to punish somebody else over something they may do in the future, well, it feels morally wrong. When Spider-Man and Captain America traveled to Washington to seek out a possible vision, conflict does in fact arise. It's Civil War too, you gotta remember that. So Tony gets punched so hard by Captain Marvel that he falls into a coma. Yikes. Number 7, Endgame sacrifice. Of course, the worst things that happen to MCU Tony is also one of the best things that happened to the universe. After 5 years of half the population missing, Tony agrees to work out a time heist with the remaining Avengers, and when they get back with the stones, sans Natasha, Thanos is waiting there too. Tony didn't take the stones and fly away, no, instead he snapped his own fingers and wiped out Thanos and his army. Of course, mirroring the ending of the first Iron Man film, reminding us he is in fact Iron Man. It was a great moment, but I knew Tony was gonna die. But to see him do it in this way felt so fitting. I shed a little drop of sadness in the theater, maybe a few or 5. I couldn't stop crying. Number 6, paralyzed. Kathleen Darrett made her first appearance in Marvel Comics with Iron Man issue 233. She was this fun-loving young woman who fell for Tony Stark, but unfortunately she was psychologically unstable, so that love turned into something more sinister. Later on in Iron Man 242, Kathleen shot Tony and in turn, he was paralyzed. The injury damaged Tony's spine quite a bit. He wasn't even sure if he would ever walk again. Tony Stark is quite dramatic, he likes to put on a show, we know this, and in Iron Man issue 284, he reveals his biggest trick yet. The cover shows Tony Stark laying in a casket with the text underneath reading, "The death of Anthony Stark." Huh, what? Around him are other superheroes. They're mourning the loss of their friend and fellow Avenger. Like in Avengers Endgame, everybody shows up. Even Dr. Doom, he proposes a toast in honor of a worthy opponent who has fallen. But Tony is always prepared, even after death. He had written a note to Rhodey previously, and the note mentions a key card that would give him access to the entire complex, in the form of a CD. I got Tony Stark's Secrets and Big Shiny Tune 6. What are we feeling today, folks? Rhodey collects himself, puts in the CD, and clicks play. It's a dream scenario, really. Tony explains to Rhodey that the world still needs Iron Man, and then you see a suit made specifically for Rhodey. What a moment! Again, it mirrors Tony's final holograph message in the MCU, a powerful moment on screen and on page. So Rhodey was stressing. There was so much responsibility bestowed upon him, all the while he's trying to mourn the loss of a close friend. That's a loaded day. So finally, he suits up and it's a blast. Iron Man lives again. Nice. Turns out Tony wasn't actually dead at all, rather just under cryogenic stasis until a scientist sorted out those back problems. Invincible Iron Man, you don't say. Number 5, trick shot to the heart. Dark Avengers issue 190. In the alternate Earth of 13584, we see a pocket reality where Tony has undergone a pretty drastic upgrade, if you want to call it an upgrade, of course. He's still Iron Man, only he's evil this time around, and he's also just a brain. Yeah, this is a dark future where New York is the only remaining part of civilization, so the Dark Avengers are fighting over it. When Janet Van Dyne crushes Iron Man, he ejects out of the suit, again just a brain, just rolls on out, and at that moment Clint's brother, Barty Barton, shoots right through the brain with an arrow. At least there was a quick way to go this time around. Number 4, hit by a plane. Marvel's Dark Ages arc featured a pretty rare injury for Tony to endure, considering that he can fly and he's also wrapped in metal. The timing here is just so unfortunate. The story kicks off with an earthquake. Tony tells Pepper to take cover as he tries to figure out a super solution. Shortly after, there's power cuts, classic earthquake move, so now Pepper is stuck in an elevator and Tony's distress calls aren't even going through to the Avengers. Even his suit powers down mid-flight. On the way down, Tony's flailing about when a passing plane hits him and cuts off his left foot. The plane crashes down on the ground and Tony, while losing quite a bit of blood, crashes into Stark Towers. Number 3, lost the kid. We had an idea of how Infinity War would end. We knew part 2 was a year afterwards, so we knew somebody was biting the dust. Well, half of our beloved heroes ended up turning into dust, including the young Peter Parker. Tom Holland knocked this out of the park. I don't cry in movies often, but when Peter was telling Tony that he didn't want to go, holy shit. This was Tony's final arc, moving to the woods, having a kid, just dropped the superhero life right away, and even when Scott, Steve, and Natasha showed up to offer a possible solution, Tony doesn't even want to be involved. He says he's got a second chance right here, referring to Morgan and Pepper. Losing Spider-Man, Tony felt responsible. He made the kid the suit that allowed him to even go to space in the first place, and then all of a sudden he's a pile of dust all over your lap. Yeah, that would mess me up for 5 years as well. You don't blame him. Number 2, Armor Wars. The Armor Wars series is confirmed to hit Disney Plus sometime down the road, with Don Cheadle attached to the project, so we figured we'd remind you how the comics went. It's just a blast. Armor Wars is a 7-issue series written by David Michelinie and Bob Layton. Now after Iron Man's tech was stolen, Tony was on the hunt to take down several villains using any sort of armor or tech. He's taken down anybody with armor. He even fights fellow Avenger Stingray at one point, although he's innocent. I hope we get that fun introduction in live action. That would be crisp. When Iron Man battled Firepower, he got injured so badly that he faked his own death. See, in the comics at this time, the world didn't know that Iron Man was Tony Stark. They thought it was Tony's bodyguard, a guy named Randall Pierce. So Tony ended up becoming the new Iron Man, although he took all of those punches before anonymously. And finally, number 1, Infinity Gauntlet. Just because the Infinity Gauntlet can undo things doesn't mean we can forget about them. Like that time in the comics when Iron Man got his head ripped off by Taraxia. The Infinity Gauntlet was a 6-part series that began in 1991 from the brilliant Jim Starlin and George Perez. It opens with Silver Surfer crashing down into Earth, saying that Thanos is coming. And come issue 4, the Avengers are now going to Thanos. The plan was for the Avengers to attack Thanos and his new partner, Taraxia. Meanwhile, Silver Surfer was waiting around on deck to snatch that Infinity Gauntlet. Sounds easier said than done. Thanos stops Thor's hammers with his fingertips, Wolverine's adamantium bones turn to rubber, so gross. Cyclops gets his head stuck in a clear block of force, Vision gets the life literally ripped out of him, and Iron Man gets dispatched, as Taraxia says, whilst holding Tony's head proudly. Like it's a birthday cake. She's like, here you go, Thanos, here's a head. Things get undone later on, but that one shot of everybody just laying there, it's gonna live in my head rent-free. Kicking off the list at number 10, smacked by Thanos. We got to see Captain America and many others get the beatdown of their lives in Avengers Infinity War, but in the comic, in Infinity Gauntlet, it was somehow even more brutal. Yet in part 4 of Jim Starlin's The Infinity Gauntlet, Thanos at one point weakens himself while maintaining the stones because he wanted to take on the Avengers in a more equal fight. All of this just to impress Death. So he makes himself weak and then fistfights them. It's crazy. So Captain America is leading the Avengers into battle, and at this point, everybody is getting hit. Cyclops gets his head stuck in a clear block of force. Vision gets his insides just torn out. And then Thanos sees Cap as having such an emotional outburst. And then after Thanos destroys Cap's shield, he gives him the mighty backhand of a lifetime, knocking him out cold. And before we continue on to number 9, guys, if you could just go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, because it really goes a long way for us here at the studio. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Now back to the video. Number 9, he lost Bucky. Okay, 2005 was a wild time. We got to see Jason Todd return as the Red Hood, and Marvel had their own type of super sleeper assassin come back from the dead as well, Bucky Barnes. In 2005, Bucky Barnes returned, but of course he was never the same. Near the end of World War II, Bucky and Cap were trying to disarm a bomb on a plane while taking down Baron Zemo. The bomb went off, hurling Steve and Bucky into the freezing waters, and well, as for Cap, he came out of this pretty good. He remained frozen, just hanging out, and Bucky, he didn't end up so lucky. His body fell into the freezing waters, and at the time, a Soviet spy submarine was in the area crossing the English Channel. So they scooped him up, fixed the whole left arm situation, brainwashed him, and turned him into this brutal assassin. It's heartbreaking. See, he has all these incredible abilities that make him a fierce warrior, but he doesn't remember how he got them, making him this deadly assassin and a super crazy villain to handle. This is Steve's right-hand man. Every conflict that they go through is just painful. One of the biggest turning points of Marvel was the introduction of the Winter Soldier. This was a conflict that came to life on the big screen back in 2014 with the Winter Soldier, and we're kind of still seeing Bucky try and figure this life out. With the Falcon and the Winter Soldier coming next month on Disney Plus, we can see even more of what he has to go through post-Winter Soldier times. Number 8, Hail Hydra. This next one resulted in writer Nick Spencer getting death threats. That's right, so fans were mostly not okay with this one. Back in 2016, Captain America said 2 words that would throw every comic book fan for a loop: Hail Hydra. It all went down in 2017's Secret Wars, when Captain America's reality had been rewritten secretly by Kobik, who was a sentient cosmic cube acting under the influence of the Red Skull. So as a child, Steve was recruited and raised to believe in their ideology, which was the strong ruling for the weak, for the good of all. Now there's a pleasant nod to this in Avengers Endgame, of course, when the team goes back in time to the first Avengers plot. We see Steve get in the elevator to try and get the scepter, and then we see the whole Hydra/Shield elevator stocked full of guys. Now we don't know this at the time, but that's fully Hydra. But Steve knows this. So instead of beating everybody up and kicking ass in the elevator like he did in Winter Soldier, he just said, "Hail Hydra." And then just like that, he walked out of the elevator with a smirk on his face. It was beautiful. Number 7, Old Man Cap. At the end of Avengers Endgame, now that we're talking about it, we see Captain America return the Infinity Stones. Only he doesn't shoot back to the present day after he's done. No, he sticks around, hangs out with Peggy, dances the night away, and then we see him as an old man giving the shield down to Sam Wilson just minutes later. It's a lovely end to Chris Evans' run run on the character. You got a lot of feels. But in the comics, we also saw an old Captain America, but this time, it wasn't on his terms. The Iron Nail sucked all of Cap's serum out, leaving him not ripped, but also not young as well. So now Steve looked 90, and there's no way you're gonna fight at that age, let alone pick up a shield. So he would lead the Avengers and call out orders from the radio. It sounds like a pretty sweet job for us, but for Steve, he's probably like, man, this is the most boring job I've had in my entire life. Number 6. William Naslund. He was originally introduced in the comics as the Spirit of 76 in Invaders issue 14. William Naslund also held Captain America's mantle for a brief moment. This What If comic turned out to be canon, so back after the apparent death of Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes at the end of World War II, the United States approached him to be the new Captain America. The first replacement. Wow, how exciting would that be? So much pressure though. So he had the shield for a brief amount of time. He had done a couple of missions, and then he died in action. Yeah, he had to fight off these robots, and he ended up in the hands of one of them and was crushed to death. But he went down a hero. He activated a flare device that made the robot inactive, and he also summoned the other members of the All Winners to come to the rescue. So he went out a hero, short but sweet. Number 5. William Burnside. William Burnside, who had changed his name to Steve Rogers and even got work done on his face to match the look. He ended up developing another Captain America serum, and he and his buddy Jack tried to be the new Bucky and Cap. So they got enhanced abilities and they took down Red Skull. They did some pretty good work as a team. The only thing was, a year later, things started to go a little bit south. They started to become paranoid schizophrenics, so the government put them in cryogenic suspension. He went from being Captain America to being the villain, just like that. So William and his Bucky Barnes sidekick, Jack Monroe, both were in custody of Dr. Faustus, who brainwashed William to become the Grand Director, the leader of the hate group called the National Force. Number 4. 404. Cap not found. In Captain America issue 404, we see Steve Rogers squaring up against werewolves. Yeah, what a sight to see. You heard me correctly. I said werewolves. The story known as Children of the Night runs from issue 403 to 405. And during this time, Captain America is fighting off Starksboro werewolves. And then when Nightshade tries to inject Wolverine with her wolf serum, his healing factor keeps counteracting it. So Druid mesmerized him with serums too. Then the next issue, we see front and center Cap Wolf. Pretty hard to forget. So now he's a werewolf and he has faint memories of Steve Rogers. So, of course, as you would expect, it's a pretty messy good time. Number 3, Civil War. Captain America Civil War was released in 2016, directed by the Russo brothers, and the whole movie, like the comic, is superhero politics. If you're a superhero, you have to register. You can't just be out filming yourself doing super TikToks and then you end up accidentally exploding a school. It's just not gonna fly anymore. And in the movie, it's Wanda Maximoff who kickstarts the Sokovia Accords, forcing Tony to side with the government as he feels responsible for Charles Spencer, among many others' deaths. You know, with all the events that unfolded with the Age of Ultron stuff. So Steve wants to protect Bucky this whole time, and of course, freedom throughout the team is encouraged. Now, eventually, due to Baron Zemo's work, he gets Tony in the same room as Steve, and we see footage of a brainwashed Bucky kill Tony's parents. The next 10 minutes are filled with Steve having to fight off Tony in order to save his best friend. And it's truly heartbreaking, and it all ends with Steve sticking the shield in Tony's chest, and as he carries away a broken down Winter Soldier, Tony says to him the shield does not belong to him, belongs to his father. And that's the last time he sees the shield and Tony Stark, so it all goes downhill for Cap for quite a while after this point. Number 2. Stuck in Dimension Z. In the comic storyline Castaway in Dimension Z, Captain America ends up getting stuck in this land created by Arnim Zola, and he's in there for 12 years. That's some Black Mirror type torture. That's like crazy. So during the 12 years, Steve raised a boy named Ian, who's a kid he rescued from Zola as his own. So the whole thing is that Steve has to return to Earth soon before this implant on his torso that's combined with the virus of Zola's consciousness takes over his mind. Not a great scenario. Also, ouch, that doesn't look too comfortable of a procedure. It's one of the more brutal body injuries, and of course the whole being trapped for 12 years element, I mean, that just adds to this already horrible nightmare. And finally, number 1. Shot by Sharon Carter. We go back now to the Civil War comic book event where Captain America was killed by his girlfriend Sharon Carter. Yeah, so after Crossbones sniped him, Agent 13, who at the time was Cap's girlfriend, delivered the final bullet from a much closer range. Well, it turns out it wasn't Sharon who was doing the work, really. The classic brainwashing made this defeat happen. Dr. Faustus. Okay, this causes a whole chain of events. I mean, for starters, Bucky decides he should then kill Iron Man after this, blaming him for the death of Steve Rogers. And then also Falcon ends up going after his own lead, he just leaves. And now Tony ended up showing Bucky the letter Cap wrote about how he should be the next Captain America. And Bucky agrees to take the spot only if he can operate solo. No government government, no big brother watching, just let me do my job, move out of the way, you guys suck. To think all this came to a climax after Steve's girlfriend was the one to deliver that final blow just adds insult to injury. Well, number 10, Wanda's mind games. With many comics to pick and choose all these events from, we gotta start somewhere where most of us kind of remember, just to get the gears turning. So we go back now to 2015, Avengers Age of Ultron. Now before Wanda Maximoff was an Avenger, she was getting her evil days under her belt. She was Team Hydra, or rather Team Ultron in this case. This included playing mind tricks with the Avengers. Wanda got to Banner and he hulked out, and this time it was bad. It ended very badly. Now at this point in the MCU, the Hulk had a handle on his angry side. It was controllable in a way. All he needed was for Black Widow to tap her fingers on his big old green palm and then say, oh, the sun's getting low, you're good, we're all good. Welcome back, Banner, let's go home. But she wasn't able to do that this time because of Wanda's mind tricks. She was also under her hex. Meanwhile, Ultron's getting his cold hands on some vibranium and Bruce is going nuts. He ends up going absolutely crazy and it takes Iron Man and his new Veronica armor, the Hulkbuster armor. He has to knock some senses back into him, literally. He punches him so hard that he goes to sleep. And before we continue on with this list, guys, if you want to go ahead and give this video a like, that would be great. And while you're there, you might as well just subscribe. I mean, you're already watching these videos, just a little tap-tap-a-roo and then our face will pop into your YouTube. You don't have to do anything. We'll just show up. So thank you so much for your support. Now let's get right back into this video. Number 9, Soul Survivor. Hulk the End, written by Peter David, released in 2002, is a one-shot that takes place in a world where nobody is left but Bruce Banner. In a world probably resembling our near future following a war that ended in nuclear fallout, the issue starts with Banner vlogging. Yeah, just kind of like this in a way. He's accompanied by a vidbot, this floating camera that always hovers 10 feet away from him. It was assigned to confirm and record the fate of the final humans on Earth. Seeing as Banner is the last one and he's not gonna die, it's just gonna follow him around until the end of time. Banner doesn't mind it, but Hulk hates it. God, that would be so annoying. It's like TMZ, but in the future. It's coming. So Banner just absorbs all this nuclear energy and now he walks about all these wastelands that were once home. He's not totally alone though. No, he comes across these giant mutated cockroaches. And it's a really dark and cold ending for Bruce. The Hulk just wants to be the biggest, baddest creature ever and rule a planet, and Banner just wants to pass away. He's done. He wants nothing to do with this. It goes deep. Also, not to mention that the Hulk often has his body destroyed and devoured by these massive mutant cockroaches. He grows them back afterwards because of the increased gamma, but man, that's gotta suck. Number 8, A Perfect Pair. While Logan broke R-rated records back in 2017, it introduced us to what a darker side to the superhero life may just look like. And in the Old Man Logan storyline, we find the Hulk as one of the few remaining superheroes on Earth. Now at this point, Banner had decided to breed with somebody like him, maybe a bit too much like him. Like say, I don't know, his cousin Jennifer Walters? Yeah, they had offsprings and they referred to them as Hulk Gang. Now, if you think that's crazy enough, the Hulk Gang was actually responsible for the death of Logan's family. Just cause, well, you know, Hulk Gang gets bored. Hulk Gang wants to fight, that's it. So Wolverine went to exchange a few words with the green guy and the Hulk ended up swallowing Wolverine whole. Yum. Now it sounds like the Hulk won, but that's not the case in this list. Things are gonna get a little bit different. Wolverine then used his claws to get out in a rather messy way. That's why you don't mess with Logan, Banner, come on. Number 7, kicked out by the Illuminati. When you have this massive green monster that likes to smash buildings and rip people apart, you gotta ask yourself, what do we really do with this guy if things stop working out? Where do we put something like that? Well, you kick him out. Or rather, you kick him off planet. There's an idea. In Incredible Hulk issue 9, we see this. We see Fury send the Green Goliath out into space for a mission. He was originally sent to destroy the God's Eye, which is a rogue satellite, but then when the dust and wires settle, Hulk gets ready to come back to Earth. Only the shuttle goes a different way. When asked what if the Hulk comes back, Fury responds with, well, we'll deal with it. Well, he didn't return yet, I'll get into that later. But where he did end up, thanks to Fury, was Sakaar. And thus begins the Planet Hulk storyline. Number 6, Horsemen of the Apocalypse. War Hulk. Yes, this guy's great, we gotta talk about him. In X-Men Apocalypse, we caught a glimpse of the Horsemen. We have Apocalypse surrounding himself with the likes of Storm, Cyclops, Gambit, and Archangel, before going to Magneto himself. But what if he recruited the Hulk in this movie? What if we saw that? What would that look like? What if these superhero properties were all under one roof? Well, that's what happens in the Onslaught storyline. We pick up right after the Hulk and Banner split into 2 separate units, and they're on different Earths. So the angry green one ended up being recruited to serve as the Horseman War, thus giving us War Hulk. This version of the Hulk is just a treat. He's even more intimidating and powerful with Apocalypse's upgrade. Even Apocalypse had to put a limit on his powers. That's how you know it's real. Number 5, Nightmare's Mind Games. We go now to the Incredible Hulk issue 299. So after the Avengers and everybody decided, hey, the Hulk can finally control himself, let's be nice and maybe make a statue for the guy. He earned it. Earth's mightiest heroes. We love this guy. This is the best. And then in comes the villain Nightmare, just to ruin the day for everybody involved. He taps into Banner's subconscious and then makes him resort back to the monstrous, uncontrollable ways that he used to be. Again, kind of like when Wanda toyed with him in Age of Ultron, except this time he had a nice handy statue to break over his friends' heads instead, you know? He grabs a statue that was made for him and then he tosses it right at Thor. The Hulk even goes after Banner's girlfriend, Kate Waynesboro, so surely this is the day the Hulk never wished happened, so we had to include it. Number 4, Train of Emotions. Not all of these outbursts are necessarily the Hulk's fault. Sometimes it's the humans or other evil villains that are involved that just use him as a vessel. He's forced to live with a good amount of trauma, so much so that he's easily triggered by humans and their machines, like trains, for example. In the Incredible Hulk issue 122, the Hulk has a moment where he kind of destroys an entire locomotive. Hear me out, Hulk is still the victim in this situation. Now the thing is, no passengers were on the train. Great, lucky, awesome. But before he lashed out, he explained how these machines are always hurting the Hulk, or they carry soldiers to where the Hulk is hiding. So he's used to humans wanting to hurt him or do tests on him. So much so that just the sight of the train upsets our man. Now imagine if there were people on that train. They would think that it's all his fault, when in actuality it's just the government scaring him. I don't know, maybe stop launching missiles at him. He might trust you. Just an idea. Number 3, Sent to Space. Again. This time it wasn't Director Fury, no. This time it happened in Amazing Spider-Man issue 328. The Hulk gets launched into space, but not in a fancy ship and not for a fancy mission, but because Spider-Man was the current Captain Universe host, and the Hulk simply got in his way. Peter Parker obtained these new powers. He can now control web lines through willpower alone, and the dude can straight up fly. This is a great day for Peter, but it's about to become way more interesting. In comes the Hulk, ready to smash for bucks, as he puts it. Well, Peter and his new powers have got some showing off to do. After a brief exchange of words and punches, Peter finishes the battle by punching the Hulk into space. And the Hulk has accepted defeat. He thinks this is the end. He's like, wow, just like the Beatles, here comes the sun. Look at me, defeated by something I can't even punch. How tragic. And then Spider-Man swoops up, grabs him, and pulls him back down to Earth. Close one. Number 2, the other snap. In the series Incredible Hulk Future Imperfect, we meet the alternate dark future version of the Hulk. His name was the Maestro. He made his first appearance in a vision back in Incredible Hulk Volume 2, issue 401. But the Maestro is the main antagonist in this story. Now it takes place about 100 or so years in the future after a nuclear war put the planet close to extinction, similar to Hulk the End, similar vibes. Now the Maestro had been absorbing all this nuclear radiation this whole time, and he ended up becoming the strongest thing on the planet. He had these massive increases in strength and anger, plus he had the brains of Banner, so arguably he's unstoppable. While the two beasts are scrapping it out, the Hulk helps some bystanders out when a building almost crushes them. Now while this is happening and he's distracted, in comes Maestro and snaps the Hulk's neck. I mean, that would suck any day of the week, but a future version of yourself doing it, I mean, that just adds insult to injury. And finally, number 1, punched into retirement. Thor Ragnarok ended with the Asgardians drifting off into space. Surtur had just laid waste to Asgard in order to defeat Hela, and like Odin himself said, Asgard is not a place, it's a people. And these people are about to run into a bigger, badder ship very shortly. Avengers Infinity War opens with the same ship being taken over by Thanos and the Black Order. It starts off with Ebony Maw. He's giving a nice speech to a bunch of people who are dead and can't even hear the speech. And meanwhile, Thanos is rolling back his shoulders. He's already obtained the power gem at this point, and he knows the Space Stone is on this ship. But the Hulk comes out for one last swing. He comes out beast mode and starts smashing Thanos. Now for a moment, we think that the Hulk has got him. For a moment. And then Thanos, without the use of the Power Stone, beats up the Hulk so hard that he doesn't come out in the entire movie. This guy punched him in the neck so hard, he was like, okay, I'm done. I'm retired. I'm definitely not coming out. See you in 5 years, maybe.
Number 10, getting his memories back. I mean, this is one of the worst and best things to happen to Bucky when you think about it. He pursued his memories for a long time after losing them to brainwashing, but at the same time, they gave him a pretty huge amount of guilt, as he also remembered everything he had done. The person he used to be, but also the person he was shaped into becoming, against his will. It would often mean that we'd get a very different version of Bucky when he returned as the Winter Soldier after he remembered who he was. A much moodier version than the bright-eyed youngster who had been Captain America's confidant, pal, and sidekick. It would also mean that Bucky would often feel he wasn't worthy of certain tasks, titles, or even friendships, and that it would be hard for him to move forward and see himself as the hero that he could be. The hero he always had been before he was manipulated into being a villain that really he was not. Number 9, died in the snap. Oh, I didn't snap. Can't snap today. This is terrible. Don't give me the gauntlet today. Admittedly, not that bad, as all the heroes who died were returned to us once more when the Avengers finally managed to discover the secrets of time travel, used it to collect the stones, and managed to reassemble a version of the gauntlet, and undid what Thanos had done. But still, dying is never really a good time, I imagine, and all the death we experienced at Infinity War was still very tragic. Also, for a while, we didn't really know if it would end up being reversed. I mean, we hoped, we guessed, we assumed, but it was still unknown as to if it would end up being possible for our heroes to bring everyone back. So of course, Bucky is now back, and after Steve traveled back in time to settle down with Peggy, live his life out with her, and basically ended up retiring, the Winter Soldier returns to the screen to team up on Disney Plus with his partner and Cap's friend besides, Falcon, aka Sam Wilson. Alright friends, before we move on to this next point, if you are enjoying this video and you want to see more videos like it and hear more cool stuff about Winter Soldier, be sure to show us you like it by giving it a thumbs up. Hey! Number 8. The death of his parents. Not only does Bucky have a tragic life following the events of World War II, but even before then, it was pretty sad. When he was only 10 years old, he found himself an orphan. His mother had died earlier on when he was younger, making Bucky not just an older brother to his sister, but also kind of a stand-in parent for her as well, with his father working most of the time to provide for the family. Later on, Bucky would lose his father too, who died in a tragic accident that took place during his basic training with the military. Bucky and his sister would ultimately be split up, and Bucky would end up convincing Camp Lehigh, where his dad had trained, to take him in as a ward of the state, with him going on to become the camp mascot, inspiring and later on even assisting the troops. Number 7. A man out of time. Like Captain America, Bucky is also considered a man out of time. While he was born in 1925, he now lives in the present day, meaning that many of his friends from his days when he was a camp mascot during the war times and pal of Captain America, or if we're talking the MCU serving in the war, are now all dead. Not only that, but like Steve, he's had to adapt to the progress of the modern day, adapting to living in a very different world from the one that he was born into. Granted, this may have been easier for Bucky considering he was at least around, at least periodically, throughout the passing years, and as such has at least seen some of the changes as they've happened. But of course, this timelessness could also be hard for him to adjust to, especially considering how much of the time in his life he spent being controlled by others and not really experiencing the world from his own point of view, but being manipulated by others to see it how they wanted him to see it. Number 6. Death of Captain America. The supposed death. Anyways, Steve would later of course return, but yes, at the time, people thought that Steve Rogers was dead after he was shot through what looked to be the neck, yikes, and then later the gut, and yeah, anyways, he's fine, it's all fine. Bucky himself was initially believed to be the culprit, even by Falcon, and the two had a quick scuffle before Bucky explained he'd rather take his own life first before allowing himself to ever harm Steve. Aww. Bucky also then revealed that he was talking to the Nick Fury on comms and was only in the building that the sniper had sniped from because he was attempting to apprehend the person responsible, which then led to Falcon and Bucky teaming up to do so. Number 5. Used as a pawn in the Civil War. This is more exclusive to the movies, as Bucky didn't play quite as active a role in the first Civil War itself in the comics, but Winter Soldier was a huge part of the reason Iron Man and Captain America came to blows in the MCU's Civil War. Winter Soldier was revealed to be an assassin who was actually Captain America's brainwashed former BFF, James Buchanan Barnes. Gasp! Barnes was framed for the explosive attack on the Vienna International Center during the signing of the Sokovia Accords by Helmut Zemo to create a rift between the supers. Barnes was free and was seeking to learn more of his true past, but Zemo also reactivated his programming to take hold of the Winter Soldier once more so that he could use him to tear apart the Avengers and turn them against one another, especially after he revealed that the Winter Soldier was actually the one responsible for killing Tony's parents. Number 4. Frozen. Like Cap, Bucky Barnes was also frozen, being plunged into frozen waters and later retrieved by a Soviet submarine. Being frozen not only doesn't sound pleasant, because, you know, it's cold and uncomfortable and it hurts, but also it sounds pretty deadly. Bucky was lucky he survived, actually. In fact, the scientists that were to study him weren't even sure that it would be possible to revive him, and after studying him for 2 weeks without finding any traces of the super soldier serum that they had been looking for and hoping to find in his blood, they decided to put him back back on ice. Ugh. Bucky was put into stasis mode for 9 years before he would be revived again so that he could be transformed and weaponized. Number 3. Brainwashed. Bucky was believed dead after he went missing in action. In reality, we later learned that while he had lost his arm in the incident that people believed had killed him, Bucky himself had actually survived. Unfortunately, it was the Soviet Union who had found him and took him in. Keeping his discovery a secret, they brainwashed Barnes, making him loathe the West, turning him into a cyborg, giving him a cybernetic arm in place of the one that he'd lost, and began training him to turn him into their very own weapon and assassin. Number 2. Recaptured. The Winter Soldier, it should be noted, has escaped his captors in the past, but sadly, due to having his brains kinda scrambled, was never able to free himself fully due to the fact that he found himself confused without his handlers and lost. After the assassination of Senator Harry Baxter, the Winter Soldier missed making his extraction point and instead disappeared, going off the grid. Unfortunately for him, without his puppet masters controlling him, he didn't really know where to turn or what to do, and he ended up being recaptured by them shortly thereafter, eventually being located in New York and then taken back in. They decided that his return to America must have triggered something in him, wiped his brain, and were careful to note in his file that missions that would take him to the USA should be avoided in the future. Number 1. Used as a deadly weapon. In the MCU and in the comics, the Winter Soldier is brainwashed and programmed to be an assassin and a weapon, which is probably why he and Black Widow get along so well in the comics and even end up together romantically now and then. They both understand what it's like to be made into a monster, to be manipulated into doing evil deeds that they probably ordinarily wouldn't have done otherwise, but that they still obviously carry a lot of guilt about. The Winter Soldier was used to take out a ton of targets over the years, including Howard Stark and Maria Stark in the MCU, and in the comics, Nomad, Wolverine's love Itsu Akihiro, and President John F. Kennedy, to name a few.